Well, look, it's male panel time. Chris Minns is with us, always an outstanding performer for the Labor Party. And from the New South Wales Government, the very bright Gareth Ward, Minister for Families, Communities and Disability Services. Last week, as you remember in this segment with David Elliott, we talked a lot about education. You'll recall there are, in New South Wales alone, dozens and dozens of hopelessly overcrowded classrooms. I mentioned Chatswood High, an enrolment cap of 1,200. This year, 1,605 students, 17 additional demountable classrooms, and toilet blocks installed over the summer holidays. No playground space, no natural grass, and they call it education. I will return to this issue, but not tonight. Now, thankfully, this is an Australia-wide problem. The broader issue of what children are being taught has been brought into focus today. Last week, I raised the issue of kids as young as 14 being taught about sexual consent. And I write about this stuff in tomorrow's Daily Telegraph, Brisbane's Courier Mail and the Gold Coast Bulletin. But this lesson material from kindergarten through to year 12 was signed off by all governments in 2015. Today we learn that a school, which is 2 years old, Lindfield Learning Village, displays student-made posters emblazoned with the words, "Stop killer cops," "Pigs out of the country," "White lives matter too much." David Elliott, the New South Wales Police Minister, says someone should be sacked. Well, Gareth Ward, thank you, both of you, for your time. Apart from shaking your head, what should happen? Gareth Ward, you're a member of the government.
Well, Alan, I feel terribly for our police that put their lives on the line every day to have to put up with this sort of nonsense. I feel for students that should expect to have education unfettered by this political idealism, and also parents that would expect that too, but also the vast majority of good teachers that actually do the right thing. This, like any incident that happens in a profession, brings everyone tragically to disrepute. It's not acceptable. It's appalling. And I think everyone should be rightfully outraged at this sort of action.
Well, Chris, this is the stuff I've been talking about for years, as has Mark Latham. One of the banners says, "White lives matter too much." Now, Chris, the Education Minister, Sarah Mitchell, says any teacher found to be politicising a classroom will face disciplinary action. That's a joke. There'll be no teachers left. The education system is full of this kind of propaganda rubbish. Climate change, white lives matter too much. What are your thoughts, Chris Minns?
Well, you're right. You have been talking about it for a long time, Alan. At this point, it looks like an isolated case, and the department's looking to see whether it's a systemic issue right across the Department of Education. I think police have enough to put up with and have every right to demand that this is not something that's being taught in New South Wales public schools. I know police officers who I'm friends with, they generally send their kids to public schools almost like this one. So yes, you can imagine how angry they'd be to have their kids come home after being taught that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. Gareth Ward, your ministerial colleague Sarah Mitchell, the Education Minister, says political activism has no place in a school. Now, I'm saying that neither you, nor Chris, nor the Minister, nor I has a clue what's going on in the classroom. So she can't give any guarantee that this stuff won't continue, Gareth.
Well, Alan, there are more than 2,200 public schools across the state. You can't expect the Minister to be in every classroom, but you can expect the government to set standards. The Minister said this falls far short of the standards. She's a great minister, as is David Elliott, and I agree with both of them. This needs to be not only looked into, but dealt with, so we don't see this happening again. There's no place for partisan politics, either in our classrooms or our universities, where we see a lot of this stuff going on. But you've got to make sure that is the reality. See, Chris, we know by the propaganda that comes out of the mouths of these young kids that they are being brainwashed. I mean, there's a climate change march in school time. They would have a clue about climate change. Black lives matter. I mean, who is teaching these kids, Chris, that all lives matter?
Well, I mean, look, as Gareth said, there's going to be an inquiry. We want to see what the story was in this particular school. I don't think we should conflate science classes around climate change with the reported situation where a teacher...
well, what do you mean? I mean, what do they know about climate? What do these kids know about climate change? They couldn't answer a question if you asked them.
They're separate. Maybe, but they're separate circumstances, and a science teacher
but still propaganda, it's still politicising. Chris,
is not the same
climate change is a political issue. And that's not something that should be drummed into the heads of kids when, in fact, it is inaccurate.
Well, I'm not sure it is, but I don't think conflating these two issues and saying that all teachers are propagandists is accurate or correct. It's not my experience as a dad or a local member.
I didn't say that. I say where it is, it should be rooted out. And how do we know it will be? I mean, Gareth, the police minister representing policemen and women, who are the first we call upon when we're in trouble, and that includes these disgraceful, selfish, ignorant and brainwashed kids who start screaming for police help if they get into trouble. David Elliott said, I'm not going to cop it. It's a disgraceful act to have any educational institution allow this sort of engagement with their students. So, Gareth, what will your government do between now and next week when this segment comes on again?
Well, I want to see a stop to it, Alan, and you're absolutely right to call out the political idealism, be it this or the climate wars that are talked about in schools. I mean, I was appalled when we saw some teachers even encouraging kids to go out on strike on a Friday. Now, if people want to have views, express them on a Saturday. But kids are actually doing themselves a disservice by leaving their school and leaving and walking away from their education to engage in this sort of stuff. And it shouldn't be promoted in schools.
Absolutely.
Schools should be a place for inspiring learning and encouraging kids to be able to live happy and successful lives.
Good on you. Well done. Now, Chris, David Elliott says he'll be writing to the Education Minister and the Education Secretary asking for a formal apology on behalf of 17,000 police officers in New South Wales. Will the Labor Party back that?
Well, if it seems there's a big problem in the education department across the system, of course we would. I've never heard of a minister demanding an apology from a ministerial colleague, so we'll see how it runs. But more to the point, I think the 17,000 police officers need to know that this is not systemically being taught right across the education department. They do an amazing job and they deserve our praise. And as someone said to me earlier today, I mean, we want kids understanding that if they are in trouble, police are the people they need to go to for help and support and safety.
Gareth, this outfit, Linfield Learning Village, opened 2 years ago, promised an innovative educational model. Why shouldn't their licence to operate be revoked if children are presenting Black Lives Matter solidarity art?
Well, Alan, you've worked in schools and you would have worked alongside some inspiring teachers. I don't think we want to punish the good teachers because of a few people here, or maybe even one teacher. I don't know how many people are involved in this, but every profession has its has its rat bags. I think they've got to be weeded out and dealt with. But I don't think we should necessarily tar everyone with the same brush. Let's have a look at what's happened here. The minister said there's going to be an inquiry, rightfully. Sarah Mitchell's an outstanding education minister. She does a great job. She's just as angry about this as you are, as I am. I think as the community is more broadly.
Well, Chris, the minister says these posters should not be displayed in a classroom. Chris Minns, does that mean that they're appropriate somewhere else? Stop killer cops, pigs out of the country, white lives matter too much? They're not appropriate anywhere, surely.
Yeah, well, no. And I think that you've seen the depth of community opposition to it over the last 24 hours. I haven't heard the comments from the Education Minister. I mean, the people that really need to drive the values and characteristics that we want to see in young people, because they do have malleable minds, are parents. They're the ones that drive the curiosity, the intellectual beliefs, and they're the ones that have got the primary responsibility here. Mostly they do a great job, and I think you're seeing that with the public reaction to this report today.
Gareth, 70% of the kids at this school come from the top income quartile of society, but they're not seen to be educated, they're being indoctrinated. As Mark Latham says, a warped ideology shoved down the throats of little kids. I mean, at the end of the day, someone's going to have to do something about this, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, Alan, as you know, I'm the Minister for Child Protection in New South Wales and the Minister for Youth and Young People. This falls far short of the standards that anyone would expect. And I think the majority of teachers, the overwhelming majority of teachers, care for their kids. They want to see them do well. They want to inspire them to do great things. This doesn't do any of that. Politics, partisanism should have no place in any school, and particularly our universities as well. I'm sick of it. The public is sick of it. We've got to stop it.
Good on you, 100%. Well, I'll tell you what, I would encourage a campaign to dob in a teacher, provide a mechanism where parents can complain with proof about what their kids are being taught, and have an independent review body to determine whether that teacher should stay in the job. So, look, thank you both for being with us. This is a big issue, but at least it's really taken the top off a saw, and let's hope that can be repaired. Thank you both for being with us tonight, Chris, and thank you, Gareth. I think there's a universal view that that sort of stuff has got to be stopped.